Today I'm testing out some new pens, gel pens, the Papermate. I love the gel pens that I have and I've recommended, but I just wanted to try something new, something with a thicker width. This is 0.7 millimeters. So I'll keep you posted on how I like these. But today we're going to look at Matthew chapter 25. As the year wraps up, I just want to make sure that my focus is in the right place, because I feel like it just hasn't been lately. So let's look at Matthew 25, and we're going to look at verse 14. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 bags more. So also, the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received 5 bags of gold brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 bags of gold. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with 2 bags of gold also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 bags of gold. See, I have gained 2 more. The master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the banker so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags. Whoever who has will be given more, and they will be given in abundance. Whoever does not have, even when they have, will be taken from them. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So one thing that I noted about this parable is it starts with again. So I went back to the beginning of verse 25, and that starts with, at that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. So that prompted me to go back even further, because I was thinking, at what time? I went back to Matthew 24, and Jesus is talking to the disciples, and he's telling them about the end of time. And go back and read the entire chapter of Matthew 24. Very interesting. But Jesus is talking about, he will return when we least expect it. He will return, it says, the day and the hour unknown. That's 24 verse 36, that section. Nobody knows. It says not even the angels will know. Only the Father in heaven. So, Jesus is telling them nobody will know when it will be. And he tells them very vaguely there will be earthquakes, and it will be a sad time. Kingdoms countries will come against one another. There will be division. And then Jesus goes on in verse 42, and he's telling them, keep watch. You don't know when the Lord will come. You must also be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you don't expect him. Jesus is going on to tell the parable of the 10 virgins, and then what we are looking at today, the parable of the bags of gold. We don't know. So I just want to start off by saying we don't know when Jesus will return. I was reading something online, and I guess there was an uprising in 1840 something, or I can't remember the years, in the 1800s, where people really thought that Jesus was coming back at a specific time and year. And when he didn't, a lot of people fell away from the faith because they were just so disappointed. But, the Bible clearly says nobody knows. So if you ever hear that, someone is declaring Jesus will come back on this day, it's not true. Nobody knows. One thing that I noticed rereading this parable is that Verse 15, it says, to one he gave 5 bags of gold, another 2 bags, and another 1, each according to his ability. This kind of reminds me that there are some people who are just called to do certain things for God. And that's because God has given them the ability to do so. I can't go sing on the worship team because I'm a terrible singer. I mean, I can, and I know it's not about how your singing sounds. I get that. I just mean, that's not what I was called to do. Let's just put it that way. That's not what I was called to do. But there are some people who have great ability in singing, and they do participate in church in that way. So I don't know, that's just one example I could think of off the top of my head. But each man was given bags of gold according to their ability. And so the man who had received 1 bag, his ability to care for more than 1 bag wasn't there. So he was only given 1 bag. And so, I just have to wonder if, and I don't know, I just think that it's interesting that the person who was only able to handle 1 bag didn't even use that 1 bag to the best of their ability, right? Because they didn't do anything with it. So it's just something that I noticed. It reminds me of Luke chapter 12, verse 48, to whom much is given, much is required. And the man who received the 5 bags, doubled what he was given. And so, I don't know, it just kind of reminds me, it parallels that verse in my mind for me. So Luke 12:48, and that's just the second part of the verse. So 12:48b, from everyone who has been given much, much will be demanded. And from the one who has been entrusted with much, much more will be asked. And this chapter in Luke is also talking about the same concept here. And he's, it's the same mindset. Be prepared, be watchful, be ready. I think sometimes we think of the end of time and when Jesus returns as such a faraway place. And yes, the Bible does not specify at all when, Jesus will return. But I think that at some point we need to recognize that it's a real and true thing. We need to continually remind ourselves that, yes, Jesus is coming back and he can come back at any time. And so while I'm here on earth, what am I doing with my time? What am I doing with my resources? If you are someone who is in a great financial position, are you giving your best to God financially? If you are someone who has a lot of time, are you giving that time? And even if you don't have a lot of time, go into your apps, your social media apps, go to Instagram and TikTok and see how much time you spent on there, because there's a feature where you can see how much time you spend on there daily. That's time, wasted time, not only just for doing stuff for God, but just, doing something for yourself even. But that's another story for another day. If you think you don't have time, check your social media app, see how much time you spent, or even see how much time you spent on your phone. My phone has a feature that tells me how much time I've spent on it that week. And I mean, these phones are a blessing and a curse because it's such a time sucker. If you feel like you don't have enough time, start there. Analyze your apps and see how much time you're spending on those things. But also, just analyze what you can do. Take a look at your life and think, okay, what can I do for God? I think sometimes, looking at things from such a limiting perspective, just like the man who had one bag. Let's go back and see what he said. So he had good intentions. He said, the man who had received, verse 24, then the man who had received one bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. And what was the master's response in verse 26? Wicked and lazy. So, and remember, Jesus is telling this as a parable. He's telling the story so that they can grasp, the meaning behind it. I don't want to be looked at as wicked and lazy in the eyes of God. And I feel like sometimes we can all fall into a place of complacency where we get a little bit caught up in the pleasures and the things that are important to us in life. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong in wanting nice things or wanting to have peace and happiness and wanting to have stuff. But where is your main focus? And that's what I have to ask myself. Where is my main focus? We could also say selfish. I mean, Jesus is the epitome of selfless. He gave his life, his very life, for us. And so if God is giving us certain things and we are not then giving it back to others in some way, shape, or form, then that is selfish. And also wicked and lazy. Laziness is huge. And especially this time of year, I get so lazy. I don't want to do anything. I just want to lay in bed under the blanket because it's so dark and cold. But that's not the point here. The point is we need to do our best with what God has given us. Verse 30, throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So not only will that person in this parable, they were looked at as wicked, lazy, and selfish, but they were thrown outside where there was weeping and gnashing of teeth. So just imagine how important it is to take a look at what God has given us. And yes, be grateful for it. And yes, it's okay to want things like, material things. But just know that this parable goes further than just material things. What can we do with our time that God has given us, our abilities, our talents? How can you bless someone else? Think about it. Think about your life in ways that you can use what you have and give back to others. for God's glory. Even if you go on to read the rest of Matthew 25, you know, Jesus is saying, you know, when the Son of Man comes, the righteous will answer. Verse 34, then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So I just want to leave you on that note. And I just want to encourage you to set your mind on what you can do for others as we enter into not only this Christmas season, but also into the new year. It's okay, like I said, to have needs and wants, but let's change our focus from self to whatever it is that God wants us to do in a way that we can help others. So if you learned anything from this, please let me know. Also, please just let me know any topics that you want me to study, any chapters of the Bible. I'm very open to suggestions and I'm making a list. But yeah, thank you so much for your kind words and support always. I post a new Bible study video on Wednesdays and Fridays at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I can't wait to study the Bible with you again.